Steve, I think the audience and myself too would love to understand and know how, what's brought you in your journey, what's brought you to this moment, and, what's stirring in your thoughts and mind and heart, what you'd like to see accomplished.
Well, it's a great question, Billy, and what brought me to this place is suffering. Suffering and a fierce determination and commitment to Jesus Christ and God. My journey has not been easy. Your journey is not easy. Journeys are hard. That's what makes them journeys. And yet what I love about God is that he will not relinquish me. It's just been such an interesting thing, Billy, all this time. You've known me a long time, and my life is at a place where that as I look forward, as I look at the next markers in my life, the only markers that matter going forward are Jesus Christ. And how in the world are we going to address suffering, address economic injustice, address how pastors are treated and maltreated? That's my heart. Mm-hmm. And then leadership, Billy, to be able to give pastors legitimate, rightful guidance that is founded not in, you and I both know we don't want anything from people. We don't seek them. We seek to be a servant. We seek to be a guide. We seek to be people that can be trusted because we care about their outcome. Does that make sense?
It does. Why don't you fill into a little bit further about a little more detail about your background? You pastored.
I did.
You've been on the radio. You've been on TV.
I have.
Kind of share how that experience.
Well, I don't talk much about myself. Johnny Carson said the most uncomfortable place for him was when someone was asking a question. I'm much more comfortable being the person that delivers things to other people. But I was converted when I was 17 years old, and I started preaching like a month afterwards. I always say I feel so sorry for those first few 100 times. I mean, I was terrible. I didn't know anything, but from there I went to, college and seminary, and almost have an earned PhD, and have counseled literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. I have worked with some of the greatest business leaders in the United States, built a great company, and then got crushed. So I know what it's like to be crushed and to get hit by what's called the bowling ball in the face, and some of you are there. And as you said, I was a pastor for many, many years, Billy, and then 25 years of radio and television. But what I think is my greatest skill is really, I'm a writer, Billy. And I've been a writer since I was 15 and on and off. I kept a journal, but really since I was 25, I've kept a pretty solid ongoing record of my days. So I think that for me, I always say it like this: in order to understand me, ask me what I'm writing about, because I'll always be able to tell you. And I don't tell many people those stories, as you know, but if you ask, I'll then tell you what's going on in my journal, because out of my journal is where everything flows. And I'll say one more thing. The journaling part of my life, the writing part of my life, is really an extension of prayer, because as you know, I have been a contemplative for almost 30 years now, and people ask me what that means. We don't have time to answer that. But it just means that you pray a lot because you have no other choice, okay? That's what it means. Does that help?
It's great feedback. About the writing, and this is how I made, interestingly enough, through your writing, is how I connected with you. I think it was a thread that led to you and I coming together. Talk about the trilogy series that you wrote, Through the Gates of Fire, if I'm remembering the trilogy right. So talk about how that came to be, what motivated you to write that, and just elaborate on that experience.
Well, no one's ever asked me about that, really, and I don't talk about myself a lot, and thank you for asking. This is really embarrassing. I have read The Lord of the Rings like 20 years straight. Bill and Frodo go on their journey in October. So every year I would read those books, and then of course C.S. Lewis's trilogy, Out of the Silent Planet, Paralynder, and then That Hideous Strength. I still say the greatest book I've ever read is That Hideous Strength. It is very hard to read. And so that idea of a trilogy, that idea of science, that idea of creating something that is outside of yourself has always kind of intrigued me. And So I was in my dorm room once, Billy, and I was, I don't know, 18 years old or something. And you have to understand, I was, this kid that was so lost. I'm at this Bible school, and I don't know anything about Bible people, but I'm at this Bible college place. And I had screwed something up just terribly again. So I'm laying on my bunk bed like at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking, what have I done now? And then this idea came to me of this character who always did things right. Because I always did things wrong. If it was to be messed up, I messed it up. So I thought about this kind of altered person than me. And ultimately that became Flash Bastion, and that became this story that evolved. It took about 20 years for me to really get the courage to write that. But I thank you for asking about it, because it is like the golden nugget of my life that not many people know about, and those books have kind of gone out of fashion. But I do pray that God will give them a voice again. And I am working on a 4th novel, as you know, that I've been working on about 6 years, called The Third Adam. And it's a story now of kind of an adult version of someone that is more like me. Flash Bastion was nothing like me, zero. I mean, that guy, his life was golden. And but The Third Adam is about a guy who's an intellect who gets deposed and then has to figure life out and becomes, if you will, a savior figure. I like those kind of heroic characters. I like them.
Speaking of the characters too, wasn't it out of that series, and elaborate on this again, that where Saint Eligius, talk about Saint Eligius, which is, of course, the name of our current charity.
Well, bless you, Billy. I'm so glad you asked, and the answer is yes. Inside of that book, when I was a kid, you have to understand, I was raised very poor. Mm-hmm. People don't get poor the way I was raised poor. I mean, nothing. And I played hockey, and I was not very good. I was kind of the mucker, but I just loved to do it. When I was a kid, I was just kind of this very introverted kid, but not very athletic, but I played hockey. And when I would play hockey, Billy, I'd play with these guys that went to Chaminade and St. Louis University High, and on and on and on it goes. These guys that were very wealthy, prominent families, and Catholic schools, and I was a Catholic kid, and of course I could go to Mass, that's all. So I always loved that idea, this Catholic preparatory high school. And so when I created the books, I wanted the character to go to one, and so I created St. Eligius, and thanks for asking, and that's how our charity is called, St. Eligius.
And wasn't there a characteristic of St. Eligius? I remember, if I'm remembering correctly from reading the series, that there was this important component. He was a saint, and his sainthood came out of the fact of his work with the business community.
That's absolutely right.
And talk about that, because that drives, that's kind of a driving component of our St. Eligius organization.
It's so funny that you remember all this stuff, Billy. No, I needed the patron saint.
Yes.
I was struggling again, and my life's been.
And you're a good Baptist boy, right? At this time.
Yes, I'm a great, pushed out, exiled Baptist, but I needed a patron saint, Right. So I created one, St. Eligius, and so you're right, 100%. That's what we created. Was this guy who cared about business people, because the business people could create the money to give to the charitable people and the poor people who couldn't help themselves. And that's who St. Eligius purportedly is.
Now, bring that experience, your business background, your business experience in the real world, and then pastoring for many years. So talk about something you referenced earlier, and you and I are talking about daily, is how do you see us being a resource to pastors, and not just of medium, large congregations. I know you and I have a heart for those that are kind of hidden away, the smaller. And whether they be here in the United States, we've had several contacts overseas now. So speak into, again, how you seeing us being a resource to those that are struggling, maybe hurting, and having whatever level of success.
Well, it's a great question, and there really are 4 things we do. Number 1 is we give counsel. Counsel is something we do very cautiously, but we do not give advice. There's a big difference between advice and counsel. Counsel means we listen to you. We understand if you're a pastor, a church leader, a person of importance in the religious community, where, like Billy said, whether it's in Pakistan or whether it's in Paris, France, or whether it's in Paris, Tennessee, we understand that there's a burden placed upon you. And Billy, what we found is that the men and women that are in those leadership positions generally are isolated. We have found that generally they are in a position where that no one listens to them. People listen to them speak, but they don't listen to what it is that they have to suffer through. So counsel. Number 2 is we give guidance. Guidance is so important because if you're a leader, you need to be able to figure stuff out. And beloved, inside the church, if you've never been inside of a New Testament church, there's lots of figuring out that has to happen, okay? So we give counsel, we give guidance, we give support. Support means that when God blesses us, we actually, as you know, when God leads us, we send money in your direction. We ask the people of God, if you're a person that's not a religious leader, if you care about New Testament churches and New Testament pastors of every stripe. The other thing, Billy, is we don't have a preference. As long as that person loves Jesus, we send support. Now here's the final piece that I want you to think about. We teach things. We believe that the Scripture is the most important thing we can teach. And so we did give instruction in godliness, if you can say it that way, and provide them with materials that they can use. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Great comments. In conclusion for this segment, talk about couple of the recent experiences that we've had using our online technology and how it's been effective for a couple pastors I know that you've worked with, and the enterprise aspect of our charity, where we're looking to empower and help these congregations, not only their leadership, but to help them create enterprises in their community to where they can thrive. And not only does the ministry or the church or the charity prosper, but it creates an economic impact into the community.
That's a great question. So let's unpack one at a time. We, for some strange reason, folks, I don't know why, I know a lot about technology. I don't know why, okay? I don't know how to write code. If you're a code writer, forgive me. I've actually managed code writers. I've managed code projects. I don't know how to write code, but I certainly understand what people need. And so what Billy's referencing is we have built some models and some modules that can help you in your own congregation. We've got a couple of examples that he's referenced where we've actually gone into the field, if you will, and we've actually got some footprints in the sand now with some pastors in this country and in a couple of other countries, in the United States and other places, so we can help with that. And so if you want to know about that, call us, send us a note at stregis.com, go to our contact page, and then send us a note and we'll start a conversation. Then the next thing is we love enterprise. We believe that the church needs to be the center of enterprise in the community, and we have some models that we can help you to kind of work through and kind of distill the fog in your own mind and start to make sense of that. So Billy, thanks for asking those two things, because I think they are kind of the critical, if you talk about the difference between strategy and tactic, those are the two tactical things that we're really good at. We're really good at the technology side, helping pastors figure out in this technological landscape how to start impacting and having a voice there. And then on the enterprise side, how the church can be able to be seen as a place of vibrancy and value for the community where it sits.
The word that comes to my mind as we wrap up here this segment is the ability to thrive as a person, to thrive as an organization, to thrive, to help the community thrive. And we're talking about real ways of making, again, elevating who you are, your abilities, your skill sets, and then making, of course, a deep spiritual impact, but making also an incredible economic impact into the community, into your organization. So, Steve, we so appreciate what you've shared here. We look forward to partnering with you into the future again as you continue to develop your future faith.